The ship descended through clouds of purple gas. Commander Tejo looked through the window and saw the largest structure he had ever witnessed. The Galactic Coliseum floated in the empty space between three dying stars. It was a sphere made of black metal and glowing blue lights. Millions of ships surrounded it, like insects around a flame. Tejo was 42 years old. He had gray hair at his temples and scars on his hands from years of service. Earth had chosen him for this mission because he never gave up. He had survived 3 wars, 2 ship crashes, and 1 year alone on a frozen moon. But nothing had prepared him for this moment. "Commander, we are receiving docking instructions," said Lieutenant Yuna from the pilot seat. She was young, only 28. But her eyes were sharp and her hands were steady. She had volunteered for this mission knowing she might never return home. "Take us in," Tejo said. His voice was calm, but his heart beat fast inside his chest. The Galactic Coliseum was where the powerful species of the galaxy decided the fate of weaker ones. Humanity had been discovered only 50 years ago. In that time, humans had spread to 12 planets. They had built ships, they had made contact with alien traders. But they had also made enemies. 3 great empires wanted to destroy humanity. They said humans were dangerous. They said humans bred too fast and took too much. They demanded that Earth be burned and all human colonies be destroyed. Only one thing could stop them: the judgment of the Apex Warrior. The Apex Warriors were the oldest fighting species in the galaxy. They had existed for 100,000 years. They had conquered thousands of worlds, but they did not rule through fear alone. They ruled through respect. Any species that earned their respect was protected. Any species they rejected was destroyed. For 10,000 years, no outsider had earned their respect. Not one. Tejo's ship entered the docking bay. Hundreds of alien vessels surrounded them. He saw ships shaped like insects, like fish, like things he could not describe. Creatures of all sizes moved through the corridors outside. Some had 4 legs, some had none. Some floated in the air like ghosts. "Stay with the ship," Tejo told his crew. There were 12 of them in total. Good men and women who had left their families behind. "If I don't return, go home. Tell them I tried." Yuna grabbed his arm. "Commander, let me come with you." "No." He looked at her with tired eyes. "Earth needs witnesses. If I fail, someone must tell our story." And he walked alone through the corridors. Alien creatures moved away from him. Some looked at him with curiosity. Others looked at him with disgust. He heard whispers in languages he did not understand, but he knew they were talking about him. The human, the primitive, the fool who thought he could stand before the apex. The Colosseum's inner chamber was vast beyond imagination. Tejo stopped at the entrance and stared. The space was large enough to hold a small moon. Millions of seats rose up in every direction, filled with creatures from across the galaxy. Floating platforms carried important leaders. Giant screens showed images of Tejo's face to those too far away to see. In the center was the arena, a flat circle of white stone, 500 meters across. And standing in the middle of that circle was the Apex Warrior, Krath the Unbroken. Tejo had seen pictures of the Apex Warriors before. They were tall, almost 3 meters high. Their skin was like gray stone. Their eyes glowed with orange fire. They had 4 arms, each one thick with muscle. But pictures could not capture the feeling of standing before one. Krath radiated power. The air around him seemed to bend. When he moved, the ground shook slightly. He wore no armor, only simple cloth around his waist. His body was covered in scars, each one a mark of victory. On his chest was burned, the symbol of his rank. He was not just any Apex Warrior. He was their champion, their judge, their voice. A floating platform carried Tejo down to the arena floor. He stepped onto the white stone and felt small. So very small. The noise of the crowd faded to silence. Every eye in that massive chamber focused on him. Krath took 3 steps forward. Each step echoed like thunder. He stopped 10 meters from Tejo and looked down at him. His orange eyes studied the human, like a scientist studying an insect. "You are the one they call human," Krath said. His voice was deep and rough, like rocks grinding together. Translators in Taeho's ear converted the alien words to Korean. "I am Commander Taeho of Earth," he replied. He kept his voice steady. He forced his legs not to shake. "I speak for my species." "Your species?" Krath made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Your species has existed for the blink of an eye. You have no great victories, no ancient wisdom, no power worth measuring. Why should the galaxy not simply erase you?" Taeho thought of his daughter back on Earth. She was 15 years old. She wanted to be a doctor. She had cried when he left, but she had also told him to be brave. He thought of the billions of humans living their simple lives, unaware that their future was being decided in this alien arena. "Because we deserve a chance," Taeho said. "Every species deserves a chance to prove itself." Krath was silent for a long moment. The crowd held its breath. Then the apex warrior raised one of his massive arms and pointed at Taeho. "The three empires have demanded your extinction. They have presented evidence of your violence, your wars, your weapons. They say you are a plague that will spread across the stars." Krath paused. "Do you deny this?" "No," Taeho said. The word surprised the crowd. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. "Humans are violent. We have fought terrible wars. We have done terrible things to each other. But we have also loved. We have created. We have dreamed. Our violence is not all that we are. Created its sand. Of God." Krath tilted his head. For the first time, something like interest appeared in his burning eyes. "You do not beg. You do not lie. You stand before me and speak truth. Even when that truth damns you." "Lies would not save us," Taeho said. "You would see through them. I would rather die with truth on my lips than live with lies in my heart." The apex warrior was silent again. Then he turned to face the crowd. His voice boomed across the chamber, amplified by ancient technology. "The human does not crawl. The human does not weep. This is unexpected." He turned back to Taeho. "I will give you one chance, human. One chance to prove your species worthy. The ancient trial. Survival against impossible odds. If you live, humanity lives. If you die, your worlds burn." Taeho felt fear grip his chest, but he pushed it down. He had come here knowing he might die. He had accepted that the moment he stepped on the ship. "I accept," he said. The crowd erupted. Some cheered, some roared with anger. The three empires' representatives screamed protests, but Krath silenced them with a single look. Far above, in the stands, Lieutenant Yuna watched through a screen. Tears ran down her face. She had just watched her commander agree to die. But she had also seen something in his eyes that gave her hope, a fire that refused to go out. The trial would begin tomorrow. Humanity's fate rested on the shoulders of one tired soldier who refused to kneel. And somewhere in the galaxy, billions of humans slept peacefully, not knowing that their future had just been bet on a single man's courage. Taeho stood alone in the arena as the crowds departed. He looked up at the distant ceiling and whispered a prayer. Not for victory. Not for survival, just for the strength to face whatever came next with his head held high. That was all he could ask for. That was all any human could ask for. Taeho did not sleep that night. He sat in a small chamber beneath the arena, given to him by the apex as tradition demanded. The room was cold and empty. There was no bed, only a flat stone surface. No food, only water in a metal bowl. This was part of the trial. The challenger must face their test hungry, tired, and alone. He thought about home. He thought about his wife, Sora, who had died 3 years ago from an illness that Earth's medicine could not cure. He thought about his daughter, Hana, who had her mother's smile and her father's stubborn spirit. He wondered if he would ever see her again. Morning came without sunrise. In space, there was no sun to guide the hours. A loud horn echoed through the chamber, telling Taeho it was time. He stood up slowly. His bones ached. His muscles were stiff. He was not a young man anymore, but he had never let his age stop him before. The door opened, and two apex warriors stood outside. They were smaller than Krath, but still massive compared to Tahoe. They said nothing. They simply waited for him to follow. The walk to the arena felt longer than it should have. Every step was heavy. Every breath was loud in Tahoe's ears. He passed through corridors filled with alien creatures who had come to watch him die. Some pointed, some laughed. A few looked at him with something like pity. When he emerged into the arena, the noise hit him like a wave. Millions of voices screaming, cheering, booing. The chamber was even more crowded than yesterday. Word had spread across the galaxy. A human was going to attempt the ancient trial. Nobody wanted to miss this. In the stands, Lieutenant Yuna sat with the rest of the crew. Ensign Junho was beside her, his young face pale with worry. Dr. Minji clutched a medical kit that she knew would be useless. Engineer Dohyun was praying quietly to gods he was not sure existed. They had all come to support their commander, even though they could do nothing to help him. Krath stood in the center of the arena. He looked at Tahoe with those burning orange eyes and raised his hand. The crowd fell silent instantly. The ancient trial has not been given to an outsider in 10,000 cycles, Krath announced. His voice reached every corner of the chamber. The last species to attempt it was the Neth. They are now extinct. Before them, the Kolor, also extinct. The trial does not forgive. The trial does not show mercy. Only the worthy survive. He walked slowly around Tahoe, studying him from every angle. The human has chosen to accept this challenge. He knows the price of failure. He knows that his entire species rests upon his actions today. And still he stands. Still he does not run. Krath stopped in front of Tahoe. Do you understand the rules, human? No, Tahoe admitted. I was not told the rules. Good, there are no rules. Krath's mouth twisted into something like a smile. The trial is simple. You will face 7 waves of enemies. Each wave is harder than the last. If you survive all 7, you will have proven your species worthy. If you fall at any point, your species will be erased. Tahoe nodded. He had expected something like this. The galaxy respected strength above all else. Words meant nothing. Only actions mattered. What weapons will I be given? He asked. Whatever you can find in the arena. Krath gestured to the empty white stone floor. There was nothing there. No weapons. No tools. No cover. Just flat, open ground. The enemies you face are not real, Krath continued. They are constructs of light and energy. But they can hurt you. They can kill you. Your pain will be real. Your blood will be real. Your death, if it comes, will be real. Krath stepped back, moving toward the edge of the arena. The trial begins now. The floor beneath Tahoe's feet began to glow. Blue light spread outward in circles. Then, in the center of the arena, something began to form. Light twisted and bent. Shapes emerged from nothing, and suddenly, Tahoe was facing 3 creatures that looked like wolves. But these wolves were 3 meters tall. Their teeth were like swords. Their eyes burned with artificial hunger. The crowd roared. The first wave had begun. Tahoe did not hesitate. Hesitation meant death. He ran to the left, forcing the wolves to spread out. They were faster than him, but he had expected that. Everything in the galaxy was faster than humans. But humans had something that most species lacked. The ability to think under pressure. The first wolf leaped at him. Tahoe dropped to the ground and rolled. The wolf sailed over him and crashed into the arena floor. Before it could recover, Tahoe was on his feet and running again. He needed a weapon. Any weapon. His eyes scanned the arena. The floor was smooth, white stone with no loose pieces. There was nothing he could use. Except the wolves themselves. When the second wolf attacked, Tahoe did not dodge. He stepped into the attack. letting the creature's jaws close around his left arm. Pain exploded through his body. He screamed, but he kept moving. With his right hand, he grabbed one of the wolf's teeth and pulled with all his strength. The tooth broke free. It was as long as his forearm, sharp as a blade. The wolf released him, howling in pain that should not have been possible for a creature of light. Taeho fell back, blood pouring from his wounded arm. But he had a weapon now. In the stands, Yuna covered her mouth with her hands. Junho looked like he might be sick, but Dr. Minji leaned forward, her eyes wide. "He planned that," she whispered. "He let it bite him on purpose." The three wolves circled Taeho now. They were more cautious. They had learned that this human was not easy prey. Taeho held his stolen tooth blade in his right hand and let his left arm hang useless at his side. The wound was deep. He was losing blood. He needed to end this quickly. The wolves attacked together. Taeho stood his ground. When the first wolf reached him, he drove the tooth blade into its skull. The creature exploded into fragments of light. One down. The second wolf bit into his leg, but he ignored the pain and stabbed downward, destroying it too. The third wolf slammed into his chest and knocked him to the ground. For a moment, Taeho could not breathe. The wolf's weight crushed him. Its jaws opened wide, ready to tear out his throat. But Taeho was not finished. He drove the tooth blade upward, into the soft flesh beneath the wolf's jaw. Light exploded. The wolf was gone. The first wave was over. Taeho lay on the arena floor, gasping for air. His arm was bleeding badly. His leg was bleeding worse. His chest felt like it was on fire. But he was alive. He had survived. The crowd was silent for a moment. Then, slowly, they began to cheer. Not for humanity, not for Earth, but for the spectacle, for the unexpected entertainment of watching a weak creature fight with such desperation. Krath watched from the edge of the arena. His expression had not changed, but something in his eyes was different now. Something like curiosity. Something like respect. "The first wave is complete," he announced. "The human has survived. 6 waves remain." Taeho forced himself to stand. His legs shook. His vision blurred. But he stood. He faced the center of the arena and waited for the next wave to begin. In his mind, he saw Hana's face. He heard her voice telling him to be brave. He remembered the promise he had made to himself before leaving Earth. He would not stop fighting until his heart stopped beating. He would give humanity every chance he could. The floor began to glow again. The second wave was coming. Taeho gripped his broken tooth blade and prepared to die. But not yet. Not without taking as many enemies with him as possible. That was the human way. That was his way. The galaxy was watching. And for the first time in 10,000 years, they were starting to wonder if they had underestimated these strange creatures from a small blue planet. The second wave was worse. 5 creatures emerged from the glowing floor. They looked like spiders made of metal and light, each one the size of a car. Their legs were blades, their bodies hummed with deadly energy. They moved in perfect formation, working together like soldiers. Taeho did not wait for them to attack. He had learned from the first wave that waiting meant death. He charged at the nearest spider, screaming a wordless battle cry. The creature was surprised by his aggression. It raised its blade legs too late. Taeho drove his tooth blade into the joint, where leg met body. Light exploded. The leg fell free, but the other spiders were on him now. One blade leg cut across his back, opening a wound from shoulder to hip. Taeho screamed but kept moving. He dove under another spider and stabbed upward into its belly. Another explosion of light. 2 down, 3 remaining. The pain was becoming harder to ignore. His arm was growing numb. His leg barely held his weight. His back felt like it was on fire. But he could not stop. Stopping meant dying. Dying meant billions of humans would follow him into darkness. He used the body of a destroyed spider as a shield. The blade legs struck metal instead of flesh. He circled around, staying close to the creatures so they could not use their formation against him. One by one, he found their weak points. One by one, they fell. When the second wave ended, Tahoe collapsed to his knees. Blood pooled beneath him. His tooth blade was cracked and dull. But he was alive. The crowd was louder now. Some were actually cheering for him. Not many, but enough that he could hear it. These beings respected fighting spirit, even in a species they considered primitive. The human continues to surprise, Krath announced. 5 waves remain. The third wave gave Tahoe no time to rest. 6 warriors appeared, shaped like the apex themselves. They were smaller than Krath, but still twice Tahoe's size. They carried weapons made of light, swords and spears that crackled with energy. Tahoe looked at his broken tooth blade. It would not survive another fight. He dropped it and raised his fists instead. The crowd laughed. Even Krath seemed amused. A human with bare hands against 6 armed warriors. It was madness, but Tahoe had a plan. When the warriors attacked, he ran. Not away from them, but toward them. He ducked under a sword swing and grabbed the arm of his attacker. Using the warrior's own momentum, he threw it into another warrior. Both fell in a tangle of limbs. Tahoe grabbed a dropped spear and spun to face the remaining 4. "You fight without honor," one of the warriors said. Its voice was like crackling fire. "I fight to survive," Tahoe replied. "There is no dishonor in that." He attacked with the spear, using techniques he had learned 20 years ago in military training. The warriors were strong and fast, but they fought with patterns. They followed rules. Tahoe had no rules. He kicked dirt into their eyes. He threw the spear like a javelin instead of fighting properly. He bit one warrior's arm when it grabbed him and tore away a chunk of light flesh. The third wave ended with Tahoe standing over 6 shattered bodies. He was covered in blood, some his own and some not. His right eye was swollen shut. 3 of his ribs were broken, but he stood. The fourth wave brought flying creatures with wings of flame. The fifth wave brought a single giant, 10 meters tall, that shook the ground with every step. The sixth wave brought a darkness that wrapped around Tahoe and tried to squeeze the life from his body. Each wave pushed him closer to death. Each wave took something from him. By the 6th wave, he had stopped screaming when he was hurt. There was no point. Pain was simply part of existence now. He moved through it like water through a river. In the stands, Yuna was crying openly. Junho had his face buried in his hands. Dr. Minji was writing notes, trying to document everything she saw. Engineer Dohyun had stopped praying and was simply watching with wide eyes. "He should be dead," Dohyun whispered. "No human body should survive this." "He is not just a body," Minji replied quietly. "He is something more." Krath watched from the edge of the arena. His expression had changed completely. The amusement was gone. The curiosity was gone. Something deeper had taken their place, something that the other Apex warriors recognized with shock. Respect. The 7th wave began. The final wave. The floor glowed brighter than before. The light twisted and shaped itself into something massive. Something terrible. A creature that seemed to be made of nightmares itself emerged. It had no fixed form. It was constantly changing, constantly shifting. One moment it had claws. The next moment it had tentacles. Its only constant feature was its eyes. Hundreds of eyes. All focused on Tahoe. The human stood on broken legs. His arms hung at his sides, barely able to move. One eye was completely blind now. His breath came in short, painful gasps. He had nothing left. No weapons, no strength, no tricks. But he still stood. The nightmare creature attacked. Tahoe did not dodge. He could not. Instead, he walked toward it, step by painful step. The creature's claws tore into his chest. He kept walking, its tentacles wrapped around his throat. He kept walking. Its 100 eyes watched in confusion as this broken human refused to fall. Tahoe reached out with his ruined hands. He grabbed the creature's shifting form and held on. It burned him. It froze him. It tore at his flesh. But he held on. He would not let go. "Why?" the creature asked. Its voice was like a whisper from a grave. Why do you not surrender? You cannot win. You are too weak, too broken, too small. Teho looked into the creature's 100 eyes. Blood ran down his face. His grip was weakening. But his voice was clear when he spoke. Because giving up is not in my nature, he said. Humans do not surrender. We do not kneel. We do not accept defeat until our hearts stop beating. And my heart is still beating. He pulled the creature closer. Closer. Until they were face to face. Or as close to face as the nightmare had. I am not fighting to win, Teho whispered. I am fighting to show you what we are, what humanity is. We are not strong, we are not fast, we are not powerful, but we never stop, we never give up, and that makes us dangerous. With the last of his strength, Teho did something the creature did not expect. He laughed. A broken, bloody laugh that echoed across the silent arena. Then he drove his forehead into the creature's central eye cluster. Light exploded. The nightmare shattered into a million fragments. The seventh wave was over. Teho fell. His body hit the white stone floor and did not move. Blood spread around him in a widening circle. The arena was completely silent. Millions of beings held their breath. Was he dead? A moment passed. Then another. Then, slowly, impossibly, Teho's hand twitched. His fingers curled into a fist. He pressed his palm against the floor and pushed. His body screamed in agony, but he pushed. He rose to his knees, then to one foot, then to both feet. Teho stood in the center of the arena, surrounded by the fragments of 7 waves of enemies. He was barely alive. His body was destroyed, but he stood. The trial was complete. The crowd did not cheer. They were too shocked to cheer. They had just witnessed something that should have been impossible. A weak human, a primitive from a forgotten planet, had survived the ancient trial that had destroyed species far more powerful than his own. Krath stepped into the arena. His orange eyes were fixed on Teho. He walked slowly toward the broken human, his heavy steps echoing in the silence. When he reached Teho, he stopped. For a long moment, the apex warrior and the human simply looked at each other. 2 fighters, 2 survivors, 2 beings who understood that some things were more important than strength alone. Then Krath did something that no apex warrior had done in 10,000 years. He knelt. The sight of Krath kneeling sent waves of shock through the Colosseum. Millions of beings rose from their seats. Some gasped. Some screamed. Some simply stared in disbelief. The apex warrior, the mightiest champion of the oldest fighting species in the galaxy, was on his knees before a half-dead human. The representatives of the 3 empires who had demanded humanity's destruction were shouting protests. They could not believe what they were seeing. This was not possible. This broke every expectation. This changed everything. Teho looked down at Krath with his one remaining eye. His mind was foggy from blood loss and pain. He was not sure if what he was seeing was real or a dream created by his dying brain. Why? Teho managed to whisper. Why are you kneeling? Krath looked up at him. Those burning orange eyes were no longer cold or distant. They held warmth now. They held understanding. Because you have earned it, Krath said. His voice was soft, meant only for Teho to hear. In 10,000 cycles, I have watched species come before me. I have watched them beg. I have watched them threaten. I have watched them try to bribe and trick and deceive. Not one of them ever simply stood and fought until the end. Krath reached out with one massive hand and gently took Teho's wounded arm. The human flinched, expecting pain. But Krath's touch was careful. You did not fight to win, Krath continued. You fought to prove a point. You fought to show the galaxy who your people are. And in doing so, you showed me something I had forgotten. That strength is not about power. It is about will. It is about spirit. It is about refusing to break even when everything tells you that you should. Krath stood. He was so much larger than Tejo that even standing, his head was far above the humans. But there was no superiority in his posture now. Only respect between equals. "I have a question for you, human," Krath said, his voice now loud enough for the arena to hear. "When you entered this arena, did you believe you would survive?" Tejo thought about lying. He thought about saying something heroic. But he had promised himself he would speak only truth. "No," he said. "I expected to die." "Then why did you fight so hard? Why did you suffer so much? Why did you not simply accept death and end your pain?" Tejo looked past Krath, up at the millions of beings watching. He thought about Hana waiting on Earth. He thought about the children who would grow up and have children of their own. He thought about all the dreams that would never exist if humanity was destroyed. "Because my death would have meant nothing," Tejo said. "But my fight might mean something. If I had died in the first wave, the galaxy would have forgotten me by tomorrow. But if I fought until my last breath, if I showed everyone what a human could endure, then maybe someone would remember. Maybe someone would think twice before trying to destroy us." Krath nodded slowly. "You fought for memory. You fought for legacy. You fought for people you will never meet and futures you will never see." He paused. "That is the truest form of courage." The apex warrior turned to face the crowd. He raised all four of his arms high above his head. His voice boomed across the arena like thunder from ancient storms. "Hear me, citizens of the galaxy. I am Krath the Unbroken, champion of the apex, voice of the ancient ones. I have judged this human, and I have found him worthy." The crowd erupted in noise. Some cheered. Many protested. The representatives of the three empires were screaming that this was a mistake, that the trial had been corrupted, that the apex must reconsider. Krath ignored them all. He turned back to Tejo and placed one massive hand on the human's shoulder. Despite his size, the touch was gentle. "There is an ancient tradition among my people," Krath said. "When a warrior proves himself equal to an apex, when he shows spirit that matches our own, we have words that we speak. These words have not been spoken to an outsider in 100,000 years. But I will speak them to you now." The arena fell silent. Every being in the Colosseum understood the importance of what was happening. History was being made. History that would echo for millennia. Krath looked directly into Tejo's eye. "I name you, brother of battle. Your blood is my blood. Your enemies are my enemies. Your people are under my protection. From this day until the stars grow cold, humanity walks with the apex." Tejo felt tears running down his face. He did not try to stop them. These were not tears of pain or sadness. These were tears of relief, of hope, of impossible victory. "I accept this honor," Tejo said. His voice was weak, but his words were clear. "On behalf of all humanity, I accept." Krath lifted Tejo's arm into the air. The human's body screamed in protest, but Krath supported his weight easily. They stood together in the center of the arena, the massive apex warrior and the broken human soldier. "Look upon them," Krath shouted to the crowd. "Look upon the species that you wish to destroy. They are not weak. They are not primitive. They are warriors. They are survivors. They are my brothers." In the stands, Yuno was sobbing. Junho was hugging her, tears running down his own face. Dr. Minji was laughing and crying at the same time. Engineer Dohan had fallen to his knees and was thanking every god he could name. Across the galaxy, the news spread faster than light. Humans were no longer a species to be destroyed. They were protected by the apex. They had earned a place among the stars, not through conquest or technology, but through pure, unbreakable will. The representatives of the three empires withdrew from the Colosseum in silence. Their plans for human extinction were over. They could not fight humanity now without fighting the apex. And nobody wanted that war. Medical teams rushed into the arena. They were apex doctors, trained to treat wounds that would kill most species. They surrounded Tejo and began their work. Krath did not leave his side. He stood guard over the human like a protective older brother. Will he survive? Yuna asked when she finally reached the arena floor. Her eyes were red from crying, but her voice was steady. Krath looked at her. He has survived the trial. Surviving his wounds will be simple in comparison. Your commander is strong. Stronger than he knows. Yuna looked down at Taeho. His eyes had finally closed. His breathing was shallow but steady. For the first time since the trial began, his face was peaceful. He saved us all, she whispered. He saved everyone. No, Krath said. He showed the galaxy what your people are capable of. Humanity saved itself. He was simply the one brave enough to stand forward. Hours passed. Taeho was taken to medical facilities that used technology far beyond anything Earth possessed. His wounds were healed. His broken bones were mended. His eye was restored. The Apex did not do things halfway. When Taeho finally woke, Krath was sitting beside his bed. The massive warrior looked almost comical in the small medical room. Like a giant, trying to fit in a dollhouse. How long? Taeho asked. 3 days. Your body needed time to heal. Krath leaned forward. How do you feel? Taeho thought about the question. His body felt strange. Whole in a way it had not been in years. But there was something else too. A weight that had been lifted from his shoulders. The weight of humanity's future. I feel like I want to go home, Taeho said. Krath nodded. You will. But first, there are matters to attend to. Treaties to sign. Alliances to form. The galaxy is changing, brother. And you are the reason why. Taeho closed his eyes and smiled. Brother. A word he had never expected to hear from a being like Krath. But somehow, it felt right. It felt earned. Humanity was safe. That was all that mattered. The weeks that followed the trial changed the galaxy forever. News of what happened in the Colosseum spread to every corner of known space. Every species heard the story of the human who refused to fall. Every world learned that humanity was now protected by the Apex. The 3 empires that had demanded human extinction retreated in shame. Their fleets pulled back from human borders. Their threats went silent. They had gambled everything on destroying a young species, and they had lost. Now they faced a choice. Accept humanity as equals, or face war with the Apex. They chose peace. Taeho spent 2 weeks in Apex medical facilities. During that time, he met with leaders from across the galaxy. Diplomats came to see the human who had done the impossible. Scientists wanted to study his biology, trying to understand how a species so physically weak could produce such mental strength. Historians recorded his words, preserving them for future generations. Krath stayed by his side through it all. The Apex warrior had taken the title of brother seriously. He introduced Taeho to other Apex leaders. He taught him their customs and traditions. He helped him navigate the complex politics of galactic society. Your people will need guidance, Krath said one evening. They were sitting on a balcony overlooking a garden filled with plants from 1,000 worlds. The galaxy is not kind to young species. There are many who will try to take advantage of you. That is why I am glad we have friends now, Taeho replied. His body was fully healed, but the memories of his wounds remained fresh. He knew he would carry those memories forever. Not friends, Krath corrected. Brothers. The Apex do not use the word lightly. When we name someone brother, we mean it. Your people are our people now. Your future is our future. Treaties were signed. Trade routes were opened. Human ships, once attacked on sight, now traveled freely through galactic space. Human colonies received protection from Apex fleets. Human technology advanced rapidly as other species began to share their knowledge. But more important than any treaty or technology was the change in how the galaxy viewed humanity. Before the trial, humans were seen as pests to be eliminated. After the trial, they were seen as something else entirely. A species that punched above its weight. A species that could not be measured by physical strength alone. Other young species began to look to humanity as an example. If the humans could earn the respect of the Apex, perhaps they could too. The trial inspired hope across the galaxy, hope that even the weakest could prove themselves worthy. Tejo finally returned to Earth on a sunny morning in June. His ship descended through clouds that looked impossibly white and clean after weeks in alien space. He saw the blue oceans and green forests of his homeworld and felt tears in his eyes. Billions of people had gathered to watch his return. Every screen on the planet showed his ship coming down. Schools had been canceled. Work had stopped. The whole world held its breath as their hero came home. When Tejo stepped out of his ship, the cheering was so loud it shook the ground. He stood there, squinting in the sunlight, and tried to process what he was seeing. There were faces stretching to the horizon, people crying, laughing, screaming his name, but he only cared about one face. Hana pushed through the crowd. She was crying and running and calling out for her father. Security guards tried to stop her, but she ducked under their arms. She ran across the landing field and threw herself into Tejo's arms. He held her tight. Tighter than he had ever held anything in his life. She was real. She was safe. She would have a future now. A future he had bought. With his blood and pain. "I watched you fight," Hana whispered. "I saw everything. I was so scared, Dad. I thought I was going to lose you." "I know," Tejo said. "But I promised you I would be brave." "I kept my promise." They stood there holding each other while the world cheered around them. For Tejo, those cheers meant nothing. The only thing that mattered was his daughter in his arms. The only thing that mattered was home. The months that followed brought more changes. Tejo was offered positions of power. He was asked to lead armies, to govern worlds, to speak for all of humanity. He refused them all. He had done his part. He wanted to spend whatever time he had left, living a simple life with his daughter. But he did agree to one role. He became Earth's ambassador to the Apex. Once a year, he traveled to the Colosseum to meet with Krath and other Apex leaders. They would talk about politics and treaties, but mostly they would simply share stories, brother to brother. During one of these visits, Krath asked Tejo a question that had been on his mind for a long time. "Do you ever regret accepting the trial? Knowing how much you suffered, how close you came to death? Would you do it again?" Tejo thought carefully before answering. He remembered the pain, the fear, the moment when he had been certain he would die. But he also remembered Hana's face, the faces of all the humans who would have died if he had refused. "Yes," he said finally. "I would do it 1,000 times if needed. Some things are worth any price." Krath nodded slowly. "That is why your species is special, brother. Not because of your strength or technology, but because you understand sacrifice. You understand that some fights must be fought, even when victory seems impossible." Earth flourished in the years that followed. Human colonies spread across the galaxy. Human scientists made discoveries that advanced their technology by centuries. Human children grew up knowing that they were part of something bigger than any single world. And in schools across human space, children learned the story of Commander Tejo, the tired soldier who stood alone in an alien arena, the ordinary man who faced impossible odds, the father who refused to give up because his daughter was waiting at home. They learned that humanity had earned its place among the stars, not through weapons or wealth, but through will. Through the simple refusal to kneel, through the belief that even the smallest being could change the galaxy. Tejo died at the age of 87, surrounded by his family. Hana was there, now a grown woman with children of her own. Yuna was there, now an admiral commanding humanity's largest fleet. Krath was there too, having traveled across the galaxy to say goodbye to his brother. When word of his death spread, the galaxy mourned. The Apex declared a day of silence in his honor. Species that had never met him spoke his name with respect. He had become more than a man. He had become a symbol, a legend, a reminder that courage knows no species. His final words were recorded and preserved. Simple words, spoken to his daughter in his last moments. "I was just a man, Hana, just one man who refused to give up. But that is what humanity is. Billions of men and women who refuse to give up. That is our strength. That is our legacy. That is why the galaxy finally yielded. And somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, his words echoed on forever. A message to the universe that humanity had arrived, that they were here to stay, and that they would never, ever kneel. The galaxy had yielded. Not to human weapons, not to human armies, but to human spirit. That was enough. That would always be enough.